Hello, my name is Chris Cruz. I'm the Director of Business Development for AWS Marketplace. And I'm joined today by Chris Chelakarai, Chief Information Security Officer at Gilead. And today we're going to talk to you about transformation, modernization, and governance with AWS Marketplace. Now, before we talk about AWS Marketplace, I think it's important to talk about Amazon as a whole. And one of the things that we take pride in at Amazon is working backwards from customers. We obsess about our customers and we're always looking for ways to make their lives easier. And a good example of that is something that happened 15 years ago at Amazon. One of the challenges that we had was the inability to deliver the innovation that we wanted to our customers. And the bottleneck when we dug into this was the speed that we took to stand up our own data centers. And we were finding that actually standing up computers was actually the bottleneck for us delivering innovation. And that thinking, that research led to the development of Amazon Web Services. Now, it turns out that Amazon wasn't the only company that was looking to have compute available on demand, and that really drove the innovation of AWS. And so you fast forward to today, we now have over 200 services available for our customers to innovate and transform their businesses across a variety of industries and verticals. You can look at financial services as an example, and you can take a look at some of the work that we've done with Capital One. And Capital One has leveraged AWS to transform how online banking occurs today. Or you can look at healthcare and pharmaceuticals, and you can see the work done by Moderna. And Moderna actually leveraged AWS to actually accelerate their development of the COVID vaccine. Another good example is Fox and how they've transformed the way that they distribute video content to their subscribers and their consumers. Or you can look at more traditional companies like Volkswagen, how they've leveraged AWS to transform their digital supply chain and really revamped how they're working with their suppliers across the board. Now you take the value and speed that you get with cloud computing and you combine that with industry trends like 5G or Internet of Things, and then also supplement that with things going on in our socio-economic environments like COVID, and it's really drove the need to go fast and innovate very quickly, leveraging technologies like AWS. Now, one of the ways that we help customers innovate is by the use of AWS Marketplace. The past few years, we've seen thousands of customers migrate to the cloud. And as part of this migration, we've invested in a broad community of partners to help our customers along the way. And by partners, I refer to anybody from like a software company that's developing technology to be used by an AWS customer, or consulting partners. And that can be anywhere from a software reseller, a managed service provider, or even a system integrator. And these partners collectively help add agility and scale to our customers as they migrate to AWS. Now, it's been great that we've been able to develop this rich partner ecosystem, but the feedback that we get from our customers is that they need a better way to discover these partners, procure, provision, and manage all these partners in one place. And why do they need to do that? Well, they're looking to drive innovation across the board, right? They want to innovate and transform. They want to find rich selection of technologies and access to new software and all kinds of new product types, no matter what their teams are developing on, whether it's a machine image, a SaaS solution, or a container. They want to migrate. They want to migrate and move fast, but they don't want to be slowed down by old legacy procurement processes. They want to be able to buy software quickly, and they also want to go through their legal negotiations very fast, right? Now, the other thing that they want to do is they want to migrate and modernize, right? They want to reduce that time with that long procurement process, simplified purchasing, simplified legal. They also want to control and govern. And what I mean by that is that they want to actually move fast, but they want to have visibility to what's being used and maintain those purchasing controls. And finally, they want to optimize that IT spend. They want to have visibility to the usage of their AWS services, as well as all the third-party software that they're using on top of AWS, and then integrate that into other solutions like AWS cost management services. So let's talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. So when I talk about innovate and transform, why are organizations doing this, right? Well, it's really a combination of multiple things. First of all, you've got disruptive cloud technology provided by AWS. You have a digitally connected consumer. Our consumers are more connected today than they've ever been in the past. We have 20 million developers around the planet that are taking businesses and converting them into a software experience. And again, you combine that with other macro technology trends like 5G, or other things going on like COVID, and it's forcing organizations to innovate or actually become obsolete. And so it's no surprise that you can see that over 75% of organizations now have a digital transformation story that they're working towards, leveraging technologies like AWS. Now, the second thing I talked about was the need to migrate and modernize. Digital transformation is driving the migration to the cloud, and it's the mainstream companies that are now moving, not just the early adopters, right? And you can see that with the 2 data points here on the screen. Now, this requires a balance of safety, security, and speed. And the enterprises that we work with are feeling pressure to respond to these market changes, but there's a lag in how they can implement these new technologies very quickly. Now, the third aspect I mentioned was governance and control, right? And governance is harder than it ever has been in the past. It's very easy to buy SaaS solutions as an example. Software no longer just runs within an enterprise's data center, as seen by these 2 data points. So this is especially hard for a large enterprise. And the builders and the procurement teams that we work with, they really struggle to understand the available products, permissions, and uses metrics that come with that technology. And what that ultimately leads to is lack of spend visibility across the board for what they're using with AWS or anybody else. And the fourth and final aspect I mentioned was the need to optimize and to do that at scale, right? Many organizations struggle with high costs in their tech portfolio, and they're stuck with very unfavorable long-term contracts that are perpetual in nature and really don't match the consumption model that they have with their cloud provider. And what that means is they get saddled with growing maintenance costs on underperforming systems, and ultimately that means they can't direct funds to technologies that are going to help them transform and innovate because they're spending everything just on maintaining what they have in place today. So there's clearly a need to do digital transformation. So what's exactly stopping organizations from doing that? Now, this is something that we take a close look at from an AWS perspective, and we see there's a lot of friction points along the ways that organizations buy software and data and bring them into their organizations, right? And these delays really slow down that modernization and that migration effort, right? We see challenges around purchasing transparency, right? The growth of shadow IT continues. Gartner estimates that over 30% of software and data that's purchased by our enterprise customers doesn't even go through vendor management. And what that means is that these enterprises aren't able to get economies of scale because they can't see the technologies that their users are actually implementing within their own organization. We see that there's very slow and reactive purchasing processes, right? Oftentimes it can take 2 upwards to 6 months just to bring on a new software provider into your organization or a consulting partner. And that is incongruent with the ability to buy software on demand. So you have a process that slows down the ability to innovate when the technology is available day one. We also see a lot of challenges around visibility and consumption, right? No one really has good entitlement management. And so it's very easy to buy 1,000 users of a particular product, but then how do you actually deploy that and manage that long term? And how do you grant blocks of that 1,000 down to your different divisions and then manage that dynamically as they use that product over time? We also see challenges around the influx of new software solutions and resource constraints. So when you take a look at a typical enterprise IT department, they have upwards of 600 contracts that they're renewing any given year. And each one of those contracts can take 2 to 6 months. And so you've got a lot of contracts out there and you have an overtaxed vendor management team that's trying to manage that process. In addition, with new technologies that come out, those are new things that they need to manage. And so there's just very little skill and experience managing SaaS ISVs as an example. And so that makes it very hard to budget and account for that long term. And then we also see a variety of challenges around security and compliance issues, right? Again, looking at things like third-party risk management can be a 4 to 6 week effort for a new ISV. And that's a process that you typically have to repeat on a year-over-year basis. And a lot of times enterprises are reliant on data from those vendors to do that. And so there's a self-reporting element that's there. It's very hard to get live evidence of a compliance perspective for a particular piece of software. And so that makes corporations favor existing vendors and really shy away from innovation and looking at newer technologies. So this is something that we take a look at from an AWS perspective, because when we're trying to address these challenges, there's a balance between speed and agility. Organizations want to transform, but they want to do so securely, safely, and with a multitude of services and partners. Now, AWS offers a number of native services to help along this process. We offer things like Control Tower that allow you to stand up a landing zone and put guardrails on that use and then deploy those out to your teams. Or using things like Service Catalog, which allows you to define a portfolio of AWS services and make those, again, available for different teams across your organization. Or you can use things like Systems Manager, which allows you to inventory and manage large fleets of servers on AWS. And so AWS has a rich ecosystem of services to help here, but we also know that customers want to use AWS alongside other third-party solutions, because we recognize that we can't solve every customer problem in itself, and so we rely on partners to fill some of those gaps where needed. And so that's where AWS Marketplace comes into play, right? Our charter is to provide a great experience for our customers to find, subscribe to, deploy, and govern third-party software, data, and in a variety of formats, such as containers and machine learning models, and then supplement that with professional services to implement, train, and maintain that technology. And then for our sellers that sell their solutions through AWS Marketplace, we aspire to be the most strategic channel for those providers so that they can acquire new customers, they can migrate existing customers to the cloud, and ultimately grow their cloud revenue. So how do we do this? Well, there's 6 different areas that we innovate alongside that our customers tell us that are vital to that supply chain experience. First and foremost, we want to provide technology that they need. And that's in a variety of formats, whether it's a SaaS solution, a container solution, or a machine image format. We want to make sure that we're providing the right technology to our customers, no matter what format that they want to use it in. We want to provide a broad selection of software for app portfolio modernization. And by broad portfolio, we talk about solutions that span from infrastructure-related software to horizontal applications to vertical solutions specific to individual industries. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we make that transaction process and that procurement process easier than it's ever been before to buy that third-party software and data. And that means providing enhanced governance and control solutions alongside the ability to buy very quickly. And then, of course, incorporating professional services into the mix. Software and data is rarely purchased in isolation. Organizations are typically buying services to actually implement that technology, train their organizations, or maintain that software and data. And so making sure that you've got the ability to buy service alongside your software is critical. And then ultimately that leads to optimizing IT spend. And how do we help our customers optimize that IT spend across both their AWS services that they buy, as well as all their third-party technologies? Now, one of the things that really drives our behavior is how we transform this buying process across what we refer to as buying centers. As we've worked with large enterprises, what we find is there's rarely one person that buys software in isolation. There's typically a number of different people that buy software across an organization. So as an example, when you're selling a horizontal piece of software, maybe it's ERP software, or it could be a vertical solution for a particular part of your organization, you're typically going to have a CIO that's part of a line of business. And they're going to make selections on things like application software. And so when we add things to our catalog and features to our catalog, we want to make sure that we're addressing that line of business buyer so they can get the best selection that they need and we have the right solutions in place for them to implement. Now, conversely, you have the security office, and we typically see the chief information security officer having their own set of buying needs. There's software that they're buying to secure that environment, or they're weighing in on the security posture of a line of business application. So again, we need to make sure that we've got the right selection in our catalog to support that CISO's office and also give them the right visibility into the software those other teams are buying so that it adheres to the overall enterprise's security standards. And then, of course, we see central finance, procurement, vendor management, and legal also as a persona that participates in that software purchase. They're either buying software for themselves to use, and it could be a procurement to pay system like Coupa, or they want to get better visibility into the legal aspects of that software. And so we make sure that we address that persona from an AWS Marketplace perspective. And as of late, we've seen the rise of the chief data officer. And this is someone that's managing all the data within the organization, but then also applying machine learning and using algorithms to really analyze that data and look for insights across that so they can help their business. And this has become a newer persona for us, but we want to make sure that we've got very rich selection around data warehousing, as well as the same functionality that they can use to leverage AWS Marketplace as part of their go-to-market efforts. And then finally, you have the CIO's office. And they're also a big technical buyer out of AWS Marketplace. And so you might have a storage administrator that's buying storage software, and they want to have rich selection and be able to deploy that and cost tag that across their organization. But then again, making sure that they're working with all these other buyers across this slide. So when we are building AWS Marketplace, we're trying to address all these different personas and make sure that we provide a world-class way for them to buy third-party software and data through AWS Marketplace. And so that's where AWS Marketplace comes into the mix. And so we're now a 9-year-old service within the AWS portfolio, and we've seen some really good growth over the years. We have over 12,000 listings available in the catalog from over 2,000 ISVs, 260 data providers, and over 500 active consulting partners that sell through AWS Marketplace. We've had really good adoption from our buyers. We have 325,000 active buyers using AWS Marketplace any given month, and we have over 2 million active subscriptions going through AWS Marketplace every given month. Now, AWS Marketplace is what we call a day one service, which means we replicate AWS Marketplace in any region that AWS launches into. So if you're a large enterprise and you have developers across the globe, rest assured that you're going to be able to get access to third-party technology through AWS Marketplace in any of those regions. And then we make it easy to find that software. We categorize that software across popular technology categories like security or storage or networking. And we also group it by different vertical lines like financial services software, retail software, and public sector software. And all that spend ultimately goes directly on the AWS bill, but allows you as both as well as a seller as well as a buyer to have that direct relationship so that you can just use Marketplace to complete that subscription in a faster process and take advantage of all the automation that we provide underneath the hood. Now, I've mentioned one of the things that's very important for us is the concept of selection. And this is something that we've really focused on, is to add very rich selection for our AWS customers. And so when we look at infrastructure software, we've got really rich selection along things like operating systems, security, storage, networking, and DevOps tools. We've stocked the catalog so that if you are looking for technologies in this area, you're going to be able to find the right solutions that run on AWS and are available to be deployed on demand into your AWS environment. Now, beyond infrastructure software, we've also focused on growing the catalog along business applications, because we see a lot of horizontal technologies now being bought out of AWS Marketplace. You might need technologies to run your call center. So we've provided a number of call center solutions available through AWS Marketplace. You might be within central finance and you want to look at what's your cost optimization perspective and how does that integrate into your AWS views. So we stocked the catalog with great solutions with products like Apptio. If you're on the e-commerce side, you're looking for digital experience solutions that can complement what you're doing on the e-commerce side. And so we've stocked the catalog again with great products from that particular part of the catalog. And education has become a very big spot, right? As we've gone online more and more, having education solutions to teach your employees or your students has become very critical. And so we've really added great selection into the catalog around the education categories. And of course, across just business applications in general, we've added great set technologies. Solutions like ERP or CRM from a company like Infor, or maybe general ledger software like Sage, or procurement to pay software like Coupa. Those are all available in Marketplace. And we've also added other collaboration tools like Smartsheet, Zoom, or Anaplan to help you plan accordingly and manage your business on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, we've also added rich selection around vertical solutions. We found that there's a whole set of software that's available specific to individual industries. There's healthcare software available for healthcare, and there's other software that might be available directly for energy companies. And so we've been very active in adding selection for those vertical categories. But when you combine infrastructure software, horizontal software, and vertical software, we give you a very rich set of selection to pick from for all of your constituents across the board, no matter where they might be within your organization. Now, it's important that we balance the speed of innovation with having that governance in place as well. And so it's great to have selection. You want to have a good way to manage that selection. And so one of the things that we're really proud of is our feature launch on private marketplaces. We launched this feature a couple years ago, and we've continued to enhance this product. We're the first marketplace to ever launch a private marketplace feature, and now you can set up multiple private marketplaces across your organization, which means you can have private marketplace for one division and a separate set of solutions available in another private marketplace for another. Another thing that we've focused on innovation on is around procurement systems. Right? We acknowledge that a lot of our large enterprises already have their workflows and their purchase orders set up in a procurement to pay system. And instead of having this be an either or, what we've done is we've spent the time to integrate AWS Marketplace into these procurement systems. So if you're using a solution like Ariba or Coupa and you want to maintain your overall workflows in those environments, you can still do that, but now supplement that experience with on-demand software purchasing capability out of AWS Marketplace, and we will integrate into that environment. And then something that we launched at reInvent last year was managed entitlements. And this now allows you to actually manage and deploy large enterprise blocks of software across your AWS environment. So now you can buy 1,000 seats of a particular product at your management account level and then actually grant blocks of those subscriptions down to all of your sub-accounts. And then as those are dynamically moving across your environment, be able to show you that so that you have a better asset management perspective for any of the software that you're running on AWS from third parties. And so here's a quote that I'm not going to read from top to bottom, but this is a great quote from one of our top partners in Presidio. And good testament to what they're doing with private marketplaces. And they're actually leveraging our private marketplace feature to set up multiple private marketplaces for all the customers that they manage and resell their software to. And this has provided great value to them because now they can actually classify and categorize that software by each of their customers and set up individual catalogs for all their downstream customers by virtue of leveraging AWS Marketplace. And so what does this all mean? And what's the bottom line benefit? And so we recently went into a study with one of our larger customers to really identify what was the value that they were getting out of AWS Marketplace. And what we found is that they identified value in 5 key areas. The first one is speed and agility. And what we mean by speed and agility is just accelerating the time to buy software and have standard legal license terms. One of the great benefits of AWS Marketplace is that we have a majority of our ISVs on one single EULA. And what that means for you as an enterprise is if you've looked at that EULA for one ISV, you've effectively looked at that for over 1,000 ISVs that are now on that contract through AWS Marketplace. Another value creation area is around enabling of innovation, right? And what we mean by this is providing that self-service experience allows your developers to go very fast. They can spin up multiple products at once, try them out, and then spin down the ones that they don't want anymore. And so it allows them to try technology out quickly and then move forward fast once they've selected the right technology for your enterprise. Another cost benefit is cost optimization, right? One of the most expensive things about buying software pre-AWS was the fact that you had to buy everything in a perpetual format, which forced you to buy for that peak usage number. And you oftentimes had a lot of software that wasn't being used. As you migrate to AWS, what you want to do is leverage the AWS Marketplace to find consumption-based software that allows you to pay on demand for only what you're using. And as you convert from perpetual licenses over to a consumption-based model, you're going to realize savings as a large enterprise. The other place that we see cost benefit is around governance and control. And this is by leveraging features like private marketplace or centralized spend management and using those approved workflows. There's savings for large enterprises by using Marketplace. And then the final place of value that we saw working with our customer was really around procurement and developer productivity. Again, this is around shortening the time it took to actually provision software, whether it was an approved image that was a BYOL image out of AWS Marketplace, or maybe it was a predefined template that we put together as a CloudFormation template that allows you to deploy multiple images at once. Having those things already pre-built accelerates your time to using technologies by using AWS Marketplace. So that's a great example from an existing customer, but why don't we hear from a current customer on how they're leveraging AWS Marketplace today? And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Krish, and he's going to talk about how Gilead has been able to leverage AWS Marketplace to improve their governance and internal processes. Krish, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Krishnan Challakare, a Chief Information Security Officer at Gilead. My overall responsibility is to define security strategy, governance, implement new controls and capabilities, and manage end-to-end operations for information security risk and compliance at Gilead. I believe most of you heard about Gilead, but if you haven't, Gilead Sciences Inc. is a biopharmaceutical company, and we are headquartered in Foster City, California, that focuses on researching and developing antiviral drugs used in treatment of virology, oncology, and inflammatory diseases. To provide a brief background, we started our digital transformation journey 3 years ago in the areas to modernize our workplace tools and capabilities, migrating our applications and infrastructure to the cloud. Our focus to adopting cloud was able to help us bring new capabilities and innovative solutions faster to our business and to enable us to scale more efficiently, and also help reduce technology debt and cybersecurity risks. In order to be successful in this journey, as a leader in the IT organization, it is our responsibility to spearhead these initiatives by partnering closely with our business partners and stakeholders. We identified solutions and capabilities that can help simplify our business processes and consolidate applications where appropriate. I would highlight 3 areas for us to be successful in this journey. First, gathering and providing the leadership support from the top is critical. Second, identify and use a strategic technology provider that can help you with this cloud migration journey. And also, leverage the talent and resources and upskill them and prepare them for the cloud migration journey. And finally, the organization change management in communicating the vision and the progress that you're making is also critical. On this slide, I'll highlight some of our digital information objectives. First, we selected AWS as our technology partner to help us with this cloud migration journey. We engaged with the AWS team to develop and implement our cloud migration strategy. As part of this effort, we began with this AWS Marketplace to help us improve our governance and internal processes. We began this journey with an Envision session to explore the art of the possible. We invited a cross-functional stakeholders from procurement, data privacy, legal, finance, and IT operations to these sessions. From the Envision Vision session, we identified 5 work streams as shown on this slide that will enable us to address some of the challenges we faced in our digital transformation initiative. We identified dedicated leads and a set of core team members to be part of the work stream to steer and manage the process internally. We also gathered executive sponsorship and support to ensure we are set up for success. In the next subsequent slides, I'll talk through this work stream and the solutions we are thinking about implementing in detail. In order to streamline our governance and procurement process, we started with exploring the capabilities like private offers that will provide us with the flexibility to negotiate custom prices and terms with our preferred software providers and value-added resellers. We also wanted to leverage the vendor security assessment process and control to help reduce the time it takes to onboard a vendor at Gilead. In addition to the assessment process, standardized license term is also one of the key components to accelerate and reduce the time it takes to complete the contract lifecycle. At Gilead, like most of you, we also procure data from several third-party providers. And to simplify and standardize the data assets, we are looking to leverage AWS Data Exchange that provides a selection of curated third-party data assets from various reputable data providers. Finally, we like to leverage the managed entitlements and private marketplace to enhance our governance and effectively manage our third-party products and suppliers. Let me talk a little bit more in detail about private offers. Private offers actually helps us to accelerate contract renewals. We are planning to leverage this capability to accelerate the purchasing cycle time by negotiating custom pricing and terms in advance for renewals with both existing and new software vendors. Private offers also helps us to receive volume discounts. Like most companies, we also have spend commitments. Private offers also actually helps us to track and meet our spend commitments and also show us which business units where we're spending most dollars for and for which providers as well. Next, let me talk a little bit more in detail about the vendor security assessment and also vendor onboarding process. Today at Gilead, before onboarding a vendor or third-party suppliers that has access to Gilead data or systems, we need to complete a vendor security and privacy assessment process. As we all know, the third-party assessment is becoming a key control to ensure that your providers have appropriate controls and measures in place. We are planning to leverage any assessments or information about the provider that has already been gathered by AWS. This will actually help us to eliminate any duplication of work and also help reduce the time it takes to complete the assessment on the providers. In addition, I think it also helps our business to bring in more solutions onto our Gilead environment much more faster as well. Third, we want to talk about AWS Data Exchange. We needed to be able to integrate new data assets to complement our data and internal research. AWS Data Exchange does that for us by making it easy for our AWS users to find, subscribe to, and use third-party data in the cloud based on the industry use cases. AWS Data Exchange provides a selection of curated third-party data assets that actually enables us to reduce the cycle time to onboard and bring external data into our environment as well. We are exploring this offer to leverage the potential of this capability in adding value to data science and analytics to integrate external data with proprietary internal data assets to help improve analytics and performance of predictive models. Let me talk a little bit more about standard licensing terms. As I mentioned earlier, standardized licensing terms actually helps us to accelerate time to contract in the contract negotiation process. Like most companies, the volume of contracts to be negotiated every year by our procurement team and the legal team is significant. So any capability that actually helps us in this area to drive productivity benefits is important to us. Standardizing the terms and conditions is also one of the critical requirements for our process improvement initiatives, and we're exploring this capability to help drive efficiencies as well. Let me talk a little bit more about private marketplace. We wanted to set up private marketplace for us to help create a custom curated catalog of all approved products from the vendors we use to help enforce and comply with our procurement policies and controls. We can also customize and set up private marketplaces and multiple instances of them so that we can standardize within our affiliate organizations as well. Private marketplace allows administrator to create a catalog of approved vendors and products from AWS Marketplace. AWS users in the same account as the administrator can purchase and launch pre-approved applications for their projects from their private marketplace, helping to ensure their AWS users are using software that meets our procurement, legal, and security controls. Administrators can also define permissions for each AWS users, receive notification every time a product is added or removed from their private marketplace, and customize as well. This including company branding such as logos, colors, and we can also put our own messaging as well. Private marketplace is built on top of AWS Marketplace, which makes it simple to find, buy, and deploy software solutions that runs on AWS. Let me touch on software and data licensing management. Like most companies, software and data license management is also a pain point for us. Today, we manage this through custom tool and spreadsheets in a very distributed manner. We like to better utilize these licenses that we already purchased as well. In order to track where we are using the licensing and how much of the licensing we are using, AWS Marketplace entitlements capability allows us to centrally track, activate, and manage third-party software licenses across various business units at Gilead. As a key takeaway, we have identified the key benefits that will help simplify the procurement and enhance our governance and compliance process. To highlight a couple of them, first, we like to reduce the time it takes to onboard a vendor from security assessment and also contract lifecycle. Second, increase our user experience and satisfaction to our stakeholders in terms of renewals and turnaround times by purchasing new solutions. Finally, we like to have a better visibility of all purchases and continuously monitor and track our use of third-party suppliers. With that, let me hand it back to Chris to talk to you about next steps.
Thanks, Krish, and thanks again, Gilead, for being such a great customer of AWS. So let's talk about next steps. So where do you start in terms of your path to going to digital transformation? Now, every new process or way of thinking needs a new starting point and a new blueprint. And as you can see, the software procurement transformation process really is broken down from our perspective into 5 stages. The first step is discover. And that means trying to figure out how you're buying software today and really mapping out that process and looking for where those key friction points are. Once you've got a good understanding of what you have in place today, we then move to the envision piece of this. And what can this look like long term if you decide to transform and embrace something like AWS Marketplace? Can you get faster time to buy software? Can you get better governance? Can you get better visibility to what's going on? Once you've got a vision of where you want to go, then we start to move into the enable phase. And this is where you start to try out things like AWS Marketplace. One of the first steps that a lot of customers try just to get a taste of the experience is leveraging things like private offers, which is where you would buy a negotiated subscription for a piece of software, but do that through AWS Marketplace. This will allow you as a customer to see the start to finish process of buying software bringing it onto the AWS bill, and then actually being able to manage that third-party software using our advanced management and governance features. As part of that enable phase, we also encourage our customers to start to take advantage of some of those features so they can see what that looks like in action and implement things like private marketplaces to actually shrink down that catalog to those corporate enterprise-approved solutions. Once you've gotten success and be able to try a couple subscriptions through Marketplace and implemented some of our management governance features, that's when we go to the scale phase. And this is where you now start to look at buying multiple subscriptions through AWS Marketplace across multiple divisions. And you take what you've done, you take your learnings for maybe one of your departments, and now you start to scale that out to your overall organization so that you can get greater economies of scale for all of your third-party technologies. And then the final step, of course, is optimize. Once you're doing multiple purchases through AWS Marketplace, doing this at scale, now this allows you to see all the software that's being used in your environment, and you can start to optimize those solutions. And it can be something as simple as optimizing the type of open source software that you might be using by tracking that through AWS Marketplace, or establishing those corporate standards across the board and being able to have that visibility through our cost tagging functionality through AWS Marketplace. Now, these 5 steps can all be encapsulated, and we'll work with you on that from an AWS Marketplace perspective. One of the things that we offer to our customers are Envision workshops. These are workshops where we will sit down with you and really help you with that discovery and envision phase, where we help you document what's going on today and what are some of those lower pieces that you can really grab onto to start to get benefit and value out of leveraging AWS Marketplace to begin that software transformation experience. And so we've heard from Gilead, but here's a couple other examples of other customers that are leveraging AWS Marketplace at scale. Nationwide last year was on stage with us talking about the benefits that they've received from AWS Marketplace by virtue of using private marketplace to really shrink down to those corporate standards. Cimpress and Agero have been leveraging AWS Marketplace really to take advantage of our private offer feature and buy large enterprise negotiated subscriptions, but then put those on the AWS bill to take advantage of their commitments to AWS and some of the other advanced governance and management capabilities that we have in place today. And Genesys is another great example from the technology sector that has also, again, been leveraging AWS Marketplace. And you can see the quotes that they talk about that really point to the benefits that they get through standardization and having the ability to access software on demand so they can try out new solutions very quickly and move fast and take advantage of market needs. So, I encourage you to all start your digital transformation experience, right? The first thing that I would encourage you to do is learn more about AWS Marketplace and how we're helping enterprises with their supply chain experience. And then, of course, the first thing is to identify those areas that are ripe for modernization. You know, there might be some legacy processes out there that are hindering your innovation, or maybe you have complex vendor onboarding, or you've got lengthy contract negotiation cycles. There's a lot of places that we can start with and really take a look at if you modernize this one element of your software procurement experience, what that might mean for your organization. And then, of course, you want to engage with your organizational stakeholders. As I mentioned before, there's rarely one person that's buying software across the board for everybody within an organization. And so part of this transformation experience really means involving stakeholders across all those different places that software is purchased, whether it's vendor management, your legal teams, procurement teams, line of business teams, CIO's office, big data team, or even your CISO's office. Having people from multiple parts of your organization that can participate in how using a marketplace to help digitally transform your software supply chain is really critical, and it's been a best practice that we've seen for the enterprises that have been successful in this journey. And then, of course, once you've got that cross-section team and you know where that low-hanging fruit is, really define those use cases that are going to define success, and then start to pilot, right? You want to learn from that experience, try something, experiment, make sure that it's going to work for your enterprise, and then you start to extrapolate that out to your overall organization. And of course, as I mentioned, engage with AWS to get started. My team provides Envision workshops that will sit down with large enterprises and really help out with that process to actually map out what's going on today and then envision what this might look like long term if you decide to incorporate AWS Marketplace as part of your software transformation process. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Hopefully this was helpful in terms of giving you some ideas on how to transform your software procurement experience. Our contact information for both myself and Chris is here on the slide, so please feel free to send us any emails if you have any questions, and thank you again for attending.